were moved out of the building to a concealed location elsewhere in Kuala Lumpur. But there was worse news to come. In Oklahoma, the total damage was far greater than expected from the homemade bomb. What contributed to the devastation was the failure of one of the supporting columns of the building next to the bomb, which brought down the whole facade. Petronas relied on similar concrete columns. The team needed to know if their massive towers were just as vulnerable. It was a serious concern. 80 floors up, it was way too late to redesign the towers. Emergency calculations brought a surprising result. They showed that not only would the Petronas towers have withstood the kind of blast that brought down Oklahoma, the towers could afford to lose 3 of the 16 major columns in each. The painstaking design process and commitment to quality had resulted in an awesomely stable structure. They were satisfied the building itself could survive an attack, but the people inside were another issue. Fire is the nightmare that haunts all designers of tall buildings. They had to have a way of getting people out, and fast. If they got it wrong, it could be a disaster. 2003, downtown Chicago. The workers at Cook County office building knew not to use the elevators during a fire. It didn't help them. The escape staircase itself filled with smoke. With no alternative exit route, 6 people didn't make it out alive. The Petronas team had to make sure a fire couldn't trap workers in the upper floors, where emergency ladders couldn't reach them. But they had 2 towers at their disposal. If they could make the 2 buildings function as one, then each could be the other's escape route. But right now, there was a 60-meter gap between the 2 towers and safety. The answer was architect Pelly's most startling innovation of all. The sky bridge was the most brilliant part of the whole design. The bridge meant in an emergency, people from one tower could escape down the other. It halved the need for staircases. In the past, links like this had only ever been built near ground level. It was a daring leap of imagination. The sky bridge made the towers instantly recognizable across the globe. The finishing touch that created architect Cesar Pelly's gateway to the future. It was also a nightmare for the engineers. All tall buildings sway in the wind. If the towers stood independently, that wouldn't matter. But with a bridge fixed between them, their movement could cause catastrophic strains. The team needed the towers to sway as little as possible. It was up to Charlie Thornton.
There are many high-rise buildings where literally, as you walk into the bathroom and you look in the toilet bowl, you will see the water sloshing around because the building is swinging.
Tests in the wind tunnel showed Petronas was going to be one of the most stable tall buildings ever built. Using tons of concrete had caused huge weight headaches during design and construction, but that same weight significantly reduced sway. Even so, the towers would still move, and there was nothing more they could do about it. They came up with an ingenious solution. Enormous bearings would allow the bridge to move freely, but they would also keep it exactly between the towers. John Dunsford, leading the Tower 2 team, got the bridge gig. It was up to him to lift the colossal structure into place. Bob Pratt in Tower 1 was pleased to be a spectator.
Let's talk about 400 tons. That's more than a 747, and you have to lift it.
We're glad they got to do it rather than us. We didn't need the headache.
They were relying on the sky bridge to make the huge building safe. If they couldn't haul it into place, the towers would be a potential death trap for thousands. The team couldn't afford for the lift to go wrong. The Prime Minister himself was watching, and thanks to the international media, so was the rest of the world. But could they lift the now famous Sky Bridge? If anything went wrong, it would be a very public spectacle. John Dunsford decided the Sky Bridge should be assembled on the ground and lifted into place in one gigantic piece. It was a logistical nightmare. The closest anyone had ever come before was in bridge construction, so the Tower 2 team borrowed bridge building techniques. They were going to lift the Sky Bridge using 16 hydraulic jacks. It's 8:30 in the morning. They've allowed themselves 20 hours to get up 170 meters. It was a painfully slow process and one fraught with danger. After each lift, just 30 centimeters at a time, the cables had to be tied off and the jacks reset.
On the morning that the Sky Bridge was going to go up, local TV companies came out, all the dignitaries came out, everybody was ready. They started. The first jack went 300 millimeters, it was level. We were all ecstatic. Everyone says, when are you going to start?
The team were delighted with their progress, even if the reporters weren't. But then, the unimaginable happened. In the intense tropical climate of Kuala Lumpur, lightning was a frequent visitor. Today, it wasn't a welcome one.
It gets dark every day around 7 o'clock. We were scheduled to be done around 8 o'clock. Storm came back. Lightning went off, all the control systems went blank. All the lights went out, and here we are. Now what do you do?
As the site plunged into darkness, the enormous Sky Bridge was left dangling in mid-air.
I just visualized a nightmare of 800 pieces between the two towers falling one at a time.